The ladies have taken over the podcast. It's about time, quite frankly. This episode, Desiree and Alexis harness their cosmic powers and discuss Marvel's first female-led film, Captain Marvel. Strap into the cockpit and engage your afterburners. I'm Nadeshda, YouTube and Instagram's pop culture vulture, and this is View the Right Thing.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hey, it's View the Right Thing, and this is Desiree and
Alexis.
Look, I maybe almost said the wrong podcast name, but I blame Steve.
Yep.
For all the million times that he has said Indiana Jaws. It's his fault. I know he hasn't said it in a long time, but I panicked, okay?
It's all good. You did it.
We are going to do a review of Captain Marvel. We both saw it. I guess we should decide if we're going to be spoilers or no spoilers.
That's hard.
It is hard. I feel like it's easier to be spoilers, but that means people can't really listen to it until maybe let's start it with no spoilers.
Yeah.
And then we'll at a certain point we'll say, okay,
if you don't want to hear about this, just stop.
You know, stop now and come back later.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, so first impressions, did you like it?
I did.
All right, I liked it too.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. What trailers did you see in front of it? I'm curious if they're the same.
Oh boy.
We saw
There was that one for it's like the Fast and Furious spin-off.
Oh yeah,
thing. Whatever. It's okay.
We also saw let's see, some Disney movies. Frozen.
Yeah, Frozen 2.
Dumbo.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think it's Disney, but that Bigfoot one, Missing Link.
Oh, yeah. That's so silly.
It looks really cute.
Yeah, it was Zach Galifianakis doing the voice.
And then we saw, Spider-Man played, but we didn't watch it.
You didn't watch it? Like, you
No.
covered your eyes?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
We closed our eyes and plugged our ears, and we didn't watch it.
So you have no idea what's going to happen?
No. I mean, I did at least hear someone who's in it that,
Yeah.
you know, is kind of spoilery, I guess, but
Ooh.
I wasn't.
You're going to be so surprised.
But that's the point. Like, that's kind of what we want. We we're like, we're going to see it anyway. Like, we don't need to, like, see a trailer and be like, what's this movie about? I wonder if we should go see it. Like, we already know we're going to see it.
Of
so
course.
why spoil anything? Might as well just go see it.
Yeah.
So we do that a lot. We did not get Avengers Endgame.
No.
Which I was a little surprised. I thought we would because we're so close to it coming out. But I'm okay with that because I don't want to see that one either.
Right. I feel like for this, they didn't show any other Marvel Universe.
Well, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He's Marvel Universe.
Yeah. True. But nothing like
Deep in.
with everybody. It's like
right.
the, I don't know, spin-offs, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. I feel like there might have been one or two more.
There might have been. I went to AMC.
Yeah, we also went to AMC.
So
Yeah, we have the...
probably have the same things on their contract. Like
I'm sure they probably do. I feel like there was one or two more, but I don't remember they were. I was not surprised about the Disney stuff, obviously, since they own Marvel now.
Yes.
Okay. Opening logo. So sweet.
Oh my gosh.
They always do that sort of, it's almost like a flip book style of like stuff from the Marvel Universe and the comics, and for this one it was all Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Like all his cameos, like pictures of him and stuff.
I was so surprised.
I know, I was like,
that.
oh my god, that's so sweet.
Choked up a little bit.
Yeah. I was like, movie hasn't even started yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really appreciated that. Like Wes and I both looked over at each other like, oh my god.
I know, I really liked that.
I'm sure we'll see you know, plenty of nods to him in future movies. He was in this one, because I'm sure he filmed before.
Yeah.
He passed, obviously.
Of course.
Reading a Mallrats script, which is amazing.
I know.
And then Kevin Smith tweeted about it, and he's like crying, like, "Oh my god!"
That was really lovely.
Yeah, it was really sweet. Okay, so let's maybe start with like a little bit of the sort of Captain Marvel / Carol Danvers history outside of the movie. I want to mostly talk about the movie, but I want to just put a couple of things in here for anybody who doesn't know or doesn't read the comics. This is its own story. They definitely pull a lot from the comics, but they also, you know, did their own thing with it too, which is I kind of appreciate, because it's I feel like it's better than just seeing the same story that you've already read. That's, you know, that never does it justice.
Yeah.
So Carol Danvers has been around for a long time. So originally, Captain Marvel was a man. He is a Kree.
Yes.
And his name is Marvel. So we'll get to that later. No spoilers. So he shows up in like 67, I think, and Carol Danvers shows up in 68.
Okay.
And she's Miss Marvel for a really long time. In the 80s, Captain Marvel dies, and a woman takes his place, but it is not Carol Danvers.
Ooh.
It is Monica Rambeau, which we'll again talk about in a minute.
Okay.
And she's a black woman in the 80s. She takes over as Captain Marvel, which is huge.
Yeah.
And then not until 2012 does Carol Danvers take over the Captain Marvel name. She has some other names, mostly Miss Marvel. She has some other names before and after, I think, mostly after Captain Marvel. But so she didn't take on that name until 2012, and that was a female writer who started writing the comic, Kelly Sue DeConnick. So, you know. But there had been a woman Captain Marvel before her. So, you know, it wasn't like totally breaking ground, but Carol had been around since almost the beginning. So it was a kind of, I think, cathartic for a lot of people for her to finally take over that Captain Marvel moniker and, you know, get a costume that covers all of her skin.
Thank you. Finally.
Yeah, some of the original Miss Marvel comic, you know how they were back in the day, like
women can only
she's
be
basically
sexy.
wearing like practically a bikini with sleeves. You're like, what is this? Anyway, so in this comic, the costume is her costume like since like 2012, like when she became Captain Marvel.
Okay.
So it you know varies a little bit from comic to comic, as all of their costumes do, but it's a very true to the comics thing, up to like how her helmet comes up and like pushes all her hair into a mohawk.
Yes.
Because I think maybe when she was Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers at some point, maybe in the 80s, had an actual mohawk, which is amazing. Yeah. So this was kind of their nod to that, I think, in 2012, where they were like, we don't really want to give her a mohawk, but we'll put this in there, so she kind of has it, which is awesome. So I love that. And then so in the comics, the things that are, you know, the same, she was a pilot.
Right.
The cat does show up. We'll talk about that a little bit after spoilers. I think the cat might have a different name, though, in the comics.
Okay.
I think the cat's name is Chewie in the comics.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Which they absolutely could have done. Like, I was like, oh, maybe they don't want to, like, bring Star Wars into it. But
yeah.
Disney owns Star Wars too, so
right.
They absolutely could have, but maybe Goose is like another cat. I don't know. I haven't read everything. So
I wonder if they chose the name Goose because of
Top Gun.
Yeah,
I think maybe
they were like fighter pilots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think that may have something to do with it, which I'm fine with.
Right.
And then, so let's see, history-wise, it kind of catches us up, I think. She's Miss Marvel for a long time. She doesn't come Captain Marvel until 2012. She was a pilot. She did have a cat. And then there is a connection with Monica Rambeau, which we'll talk about. That's super brief history. There's obviously, since she's been around since 1968, there's a ton of stuff that has happened with her. She's been both a leading character and a side character in a lot of different books. More recently, like since 2012, she's been pretty huge. Like she's had several of her own comics. She's also been in A-Force, which was an all-female Avengers team, led by She-Hulk, who is my absolute favorite. And I know I've probably talked about this before, but she's my favorite because she's a lawyer in real life. And even after she becomes She-Hulk, she doesn't stop being a lawyer. Oh. So she's kind of just badass.
So she's fighting justice in all ways.
Exactly. And she's like super like funny. She's, you know, not in the original one, but in the 80s, she does this thing like breaking the fourth wall where she like talks to the audience, which I love. And so anyway, she's my favorite, which I love that she has that connection through A-Force. Cool. Carol has also been an Avenger several times.
In the comics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the comics. So, and then, you know, maybe now in the next movie, maybe. Since, you know, that whole thing is happening. So, overall, the movie's really good. Definitely all about, like, female empowerment.
Yes.
That message is very clear in the movie. And especially with children as well.
Yeah.
Like little girls, which I absolutely love. And I'm trying to think like what else to say that's not spoilery, like before we really get into it.
Right.
One thing I absolutely loved, there is not even on the side, no romance in this movie.
True.
At all. Like it is not about that.
Right.
And it does not play into it. And there's no side B story going on with it. It's not there, and I love that.
That is so true.
Yeah. It's like refreshing. It's like, look, I love a good cheesy romance as much as anybody, but this isn't that. And so to just keep it out of there completely is great. Like for her to like not be distracted by a man or you know, be blinded by love or what, you know, some stupid crap like that.
Because I mean, there was even the blinded by love-ish type of thing in Wonder Woman.
Right.
Which was like, oh man, you guys.
No. It's like, of course she falls in love with this first man she ever meets.
Right.
Like,
yeah. That is refreshing because there's not really, like, even before things happen, they don't talk about that.
No, there's nothing. Like, it's just not a part of the story, and I just really appreciated that.
Yeah.
This movie 100% passes the Bechdel test. Do you know what that is? I guess I'll explain it for anybody who doesn't know. Alexis probably knows. So Bechdel test is basically, the rules are, does it have two women who talk to each other about something other than romance or men in the movie? Surprising number of movies do not pass the Bechdel test. It is kind of astonishing.
Wow.
Like you think like, well, that's easy. Like, sure. But then it's not. Like, it just doesn't happen that much. So it's starting to happen a lot more.
Yeah.
And then, of course, since there's no romance at all and the main character is a woman, it's much easier in this film. But she does spend a lot of the movie with men. So there are still scenes where she's with only another woman. Mm-hmm. And they obviously don't talk about romance or men.
That's true.
Yeah. It's in multiple scenes in the movie. So I really appreciated that.
That is really nice.
It's kind of huge. Wow. But right, like that shouldn't be surprising, but
it shouldn't be so like, oh my God, wow.
Oh my God, women don't always talk about romance.
What? Says who?
Yeah, it's...
No, that is really cool.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that.
Right, and I
just...
I didn't during the movie, but then, like, afterwards, once I started thinking about the romance thing, I was like, oh, also...
Yeah.
Their life does not center around romance.
Right.
Like most women's
they
lives.
They can talk about other things.
Yeah, like
things that are important.
Yeah, like their job.
Exactly.
They're, saving the world.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And there are a lot of references, like when she talks to her friend who's also a female pilot. They're like, we did this because we didn't have an opportunity to just be regular pilots, like,
right,
because we're girls in a men's world. Mm-hmm. So yeah, always right. But also so I was really excited for this movie to come out, since it's like the first Marvel female-led superhero movie.
Yes.
We've obviously had a DC female-led, but which we've also talked about on the podcast. But this is Marvel's first, and I know, right? They've made so many freaking movies. This is the first one. But they did a good job.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be as big as Black Panther was for the Black community. I wanted it to be that for the female population, and it is doing much better than they thought it would do.
Yes.
Which is great. Not doing as good as Black Panther. However, I don't think it's as good as a movie as Black Panther. So,
I mean,
Black
it's
Panther
okay. Was epic.
Right. Yeah, it's so good. So, I can't be too mad about it.
Right.
And it is, like I said, doing a lot better than they thought it would. They were originally thinking it might make $100 million. And then they kind of kept bumping it up a little bit at a time, and it now looks like after the first, day and a half or whatever, it looks like it's on track to make $150 million for opening weekend, which is
incredible.
Awesome. It was great. There were a lot of fanboys who unfortunately tried really hard to trash talk this movie before it came out. So I'm glad that it's doing really well. And it's a nice, F you to those guys who hadn't even seen the movie yet and were like freaking out. And it's like, your club is not going to deteriorate if you let women in. Like,
right?
We've been here all the time anyway. Like,
seriously. It's like they don't understand what equality means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was the whole thing. It was the same thing with Wonder Woman when that came out. Like, they were all freaking out that, like, Alamo Drafthouse did an all-women screening. And I was like, no, you don't get to complain about that.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm glad that didn't taint it. Like, it could have, been bad for it. But no. The ladies were like, no, forget you.
I do hope that more women are going to see this.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's very good, and I think it's not a mistake that they put it out not only during Women's History Month, but on like International Women's Day.
Yes,
that was fantastic. Like,
I'm surprised that they didn't like promote it
like that. Yeah. I did see a lot of like my friends who I knew would go to see it. I saw a lot of them posting that they saw it yesterday and like, making that connection. And I really thought that was great.
It was so cool.
Okay, so I guess we'll get into spoilers now.
Okay.
So if anybody doesn't want spoilers, stop now. Wait.
Go see the movie.
Go see the movie.
And then come back.
And then come back.
We'll see you in a couple minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so a couple of things right out of the gate is the Rambos.
Yes.
So I think it's Maria Rambo is her pilot buddy. Yes. Like they're pilots together. They're working on this same project with what's her name, Lawson.
Yes.
And her daughter is Monica Rambeau, who in the comics is the original Miss Marvel or the original Captain Marvel in the 80s.
Monica is.
The kid.
Oh.
So they've kind of left that open for her to show up in future movies. Like, Nick Fury even kind of makes a mention of it. Like, he's like, oh, you can only go visit her when you learn to glow, or, you know, something like that.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so she's important, potentially, to future movies, which I like. That they didn't just completely forget about that character. So that was awesome. Really appreciate that. Maria Rambeau is a critical part of the movie. Like, she's a huge character in the movie. I didn't even know they were in the movie. And they're, like, critical. They're major characters in the movie, especially Maria. So, you know, that was awesome.
Yes.
Like, a really great thing to have in this movie. Like, a second strong female character who's, you know, strong on her own right. Like, she's not just, like, a sidekick. Like, she's, like, doing her own, you know, she's a pilot. She's doing her own thing.
Right.
She's awesome.
Right. Strong single mom.
Yes, totally.
Love that.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, they have that conversation in the kitchen where they kind of talk, they, you know, just talk about, like, what is going on? Like, how did we get to here?
Yeah.
It's a really good scene. So I really love that. I hope that Monica shows up in the future movies, because you know, so now the next Marvel movie in a month, so exciting, Avengers Endgame, she'll potentially be an adult, so she may show up in that movie if she's alive.
Oh, yeah. If she made the cut.
Yeah, right. So Captain Marvel shows up, you know, in the future or now.
Right.
And there's a potential that she might be there. Like, I'm assuming she'll try to find them.
Right.
So that could be an interesting plot point in the next movie.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how that plays in.
Oh my gosh, and if they could team up together and be, like, super badass.
Yeah, totally.
Oh. And if we're already past, we're like...
Oh, we're past spoilers.
Spoilers
all out.
I mean, if they know how Captain how the hell is her name? Carol Danvers.
Carol Danvers
gets her powers, they know how other people can
could
get those
potentially
powers.
get those powers. Yeah.
So she could get
right, and the
those same powers.
Tesseract is around for somewhere. Well,
Yes.
I guess what's his ass would have it because it's one of the soul gems. You know, good old what's his ass.
Nick Fury?
No, Thanos. You know, the major villain of the last film.
Yes.
Thanos. He has all the soul gems, so I guess technically he has that because the Tesseract was one of them. Oh. Like the Tesseract gets shifted around a lot throughout the movies. Like, it goes back, they take it back to Thor's, you know, Valhalla or whatever.
Is there more than one Tesseract?
No, there's just one.
Because Kitty
Yes.
has it going on.
Right. So at the end of this movie, the cat / Flurkin coughs that Tesseract up, and Nick Fury has it. So they protected on Earth for a long time, but then in some of the past movies, it's like that's like a major plot point where they have to find it. They try to take it back. They eventually it ends up being under, like, Thor and Thor's dad's protection.
We technically don't know when he expels the Tesseract.
Right, yeah, we don't know. It's
doesn't say, like, on this day.
It's not like 12 years later. I don't know what the lifespan of a Flurkin is, but...
Yeah.
I love that they use the Flurkins. They're in the comic, in the Carol Danvers universe in her comics. Okay. And, like, there's a whole storyline where they have, there's, like, 50 of them on her spaceship.
Oh, wow.
Like cats running around.
Wow.
So, and then she ends up, one of them stays on with her, kind of.
Right. So, I imagine the Flurkin must have been, like, Dr. Lawson had brought it with her.
Yeah, since she's Kree, I think they're, like, not, they're obviously not in the same, like, from the same planet, but they're, like, they know about each other.
Out in space.
Right, they're out
like,
in space.
Oh, you're cute and
they're,
really
right.
fucking powerful.
Right,
so.
yeah.
me to take you with me because you look so innocent.
Exactly. So, but it's cool though, because like the Skrull clearly know.
Right.
Like, as soon as that cat shows up, he's like, whoa, no way. What is that thing doing here? I don't want to have anything to do with it.
And I thought, because I didn't know what a flurkin was.
Right.
I was like, do you just have a different name for cats in your universe? And I just thought that he really didn't like cats, or he was allergic or something. He's like, you shouldn't have that on you because you're going to have a reaction of some sort. I mean, Nick Fury did have a reaction. So I thought I was quite amused by that.
Yeah, then he just, like, all of a sudden, like, all these, like, fucking tentacles come out of his mouth.
That was so badass.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's pretty great. It's like a nice thing, like, if you don't know about it, it's awesome. Like, it's a cool, like, reveal, sort of, in the movie. And if you do know about it, you're just, like, waiting for, like, this thing to happen. Like, you're like, I know something cool's gonna happen because I know that these are,
right,
you know, from this other universe, whatever. So I guess my question is, are all cats actually flurkin, or are there also Earth cats that don't do that?
Oh, I mean,
like, what a genius, like, hiding in plain sight kind of thing.
Right. Well, I mean, that would be a really interesting, like, super, super deep plot point, because, you know, if we're going back to ancient Egypt.
Right, they've been around forever.
And, you know, there is lore that aliens built the pyramids and all of that. Yeah. And, like, they worshipped these cats. So
right.
That would be a really funny...
Could go pretty deep.
Yeah. Like, maybe all cats are flurkins.
Maybe they are.
Don't know. And that's why they're so sassy. They're like, you're just treating us like we're these indoor animals, but we're so much cooler than that.
If you only knew, I could destroy you. But yeah, so flurkins are awesome.
Flurkins are
and from the very beginning, like, one of the first posters, there's like a cat, like, in it. I think she's in the hangar, and there's like a cat, but it's like way down in the bottom corner of the poster.
Yeah.
And like in the shadow, so you might not notice it at first, and then once people started noticing it, they were like, oh my god, it's gonna, you know, like, they were...
It's definitely placed there on purpose.
Right, it's definitely placed there on purpose.
But if you're just like me, who didn't know that, I'm like, oh, cool, there's a cat.
Like, oh, cool, she must have a cat in the comics.
Yes. It's like placed there for super fans.
Right, exactly. It's a nice nod to anyone who has reads the comics.
Right.
I have read several of the comics. I've obviously not read everything Carol Danvers ever been in. Yeah. I didn't even really get into comics until, like, the last probably 10 or 15 years. So I'm catching up a little, but I did read Carol Corps, which was kind of another, like, team she had put together for a while, and then A-Force, and just Captain Marvel was around for a little while. So I have all those. I have those flurkin issues with all the cats on the ship.
Yeah.
I think, you know what, it's funny, like, I feel like I remember maybe Rocket in one of the Guardians movies being not fond of cats either. Yeah. Because her and the Guardians, because she's, like, in outer space dealing with stuff out there most of the time, she has, like, a relationship with the Guardians. So, like, she knows Rocket, and, like, I think he comes and, like, helps her out for a while. Oh. And so I feel like he might be in those issues with the Flurkins, and I think they might have nodded to that in one of the previous Guardians or Avengers movies. I don't remember for sure, though. Huh. I might be making that up in my head. But it's a nice little nod.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about the Rombos. We talked about the Flurkin cat. Okay, let's talk about the Skrulls.
Yes.
So I'm not super familiar with them, but from what I've heard, mostly from Wes, but, you know, also just online, the Skrulls are traditionally nasty.
Yeah.
Like, they're the villains. So when you find out that they're going to be in this movie, you just assume they're going to be the villains. And it seems like they are for the first portion of the movie.
Yeah.
And then eventually you find out they're not really the villains.
So interesting.
Yeah, and the Kree have always kind of been borderline.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. I guess kind of like humans, you know. They're notorious conquerors, which is, you know, can definitely get them into some trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah, really interesting that they kind of pulled the rug out from under you with that.
Totally. And I thought it was very interesting that what are they called again?
The Skrull.
The Skrull, sorry. The Skrulls are like refugees.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're misunderstood because they're different from these other people. I'm like, oh, that's such a political like undertone. Like, hey,
right.
Just because someone's different doesn't mean that they're bad.
Bad, exactly.
I did like that little nudge.
Yeah.
But it also made sense as to why they would be so protective and like try and kill
anyone who comes around. Yeah.
It's understandable. So like, yes, they can be seen as being the bad guys.
Right.
But really it's just that they're misunderstood. And no one takes the time to find out the real story.
Yeah, they're protecting themselves, you know.
Because isn't their race almost wiped out?
Yeah, they're like scattered across the universe kind of, or the galaxy.
Yeah.
At least they hadn't quite made it to other galaxies yet. But yeah, and like the ones that we meet more towards the end at her lab. I mean, they've been hanging out at that lab for 6 years. Like, it's crazy.
What were they eating?
They must have had some like hydroponic plants or something. I don't know. I don't know what Skrulls, how their body system works.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've been chilling up there for 6 years. Like this kid presumably barely even knows her father.
Yeah.
Like doesn't really recognize him. Like, he's kind of like hiding at first. It's like, I don't know who this guy is, which is really sad. But yeah, so that was really interesting that they ended up not being the villains at the end.
I know. And I wonder, going back to the daughter, because she's only been up in this spaceship, has she even had the opportunity to practice shape-shifting?
Right, yeah. She kind of talks about how it's like everyone
have to work on it.
Everyone technically has the ability, but you know, you have to practice and work at it. And
it's like riding a bike.
Yeah.
The first time you try and ride a bike, it's not like, oh, cool.
Yeah, right.
I know what I'm doing.
Exactly. And he also says like you have to have seen what you're going to shift into. So, you know, she hasn't seen a lot of things.
Right.
So, yeah, probably she doesn't really know how to do that. I did like that when they're with Monica and Maria at their house and they're like having dinner and stuff, and Monica's like, you know, never change your eyes, they're great, like that's awesome, I love that. And then she, as you know, a child, as an innocent, is like, well, why can't they just stay here?
I know.
And Mom's like, I wish they could, but
that would be a little challenging.
Yeah. So that's pretty great. Also, I love that, I didn't mention this when we were talking about the cats, I love that that's how Nick loses his eye.
Right?
Like, there's always been this sort of mystery around it, and I don't know if that has anything to do with the comics. Like, I don't know if that's canon, but it's great that that's... And then I also love that he never really, Coulson comes in and asks him about it, and he's like, I can neither confirm nor deny. Like, he's like, sure, it was totally the Kree that did it.
Yep. Then they bring him different like eye options, but he never does.
No, I think he's like, nah, that's just not for me.
It's way more badass to have a patch anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Then you don't have to worry about it like falling out when you're fighting and stuff like that.
Yeah. Because he is definitely going to be fighting.
Yeah, exactly. I did love that Coulson was in it. I did see that it's funny, it was in one of the early trailers. He was in it, but he's in it so briefly that you almost don't realize it's him for a second. Like, it took me probably the third or fourth time of seeing that trailer to go, oh, that's Coulson. Like, what's Coulson doing? And like, he's the...
Which one's Coulson?
He's Phil Coulson from S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes. Click.
Yes. But yeah, like I didn't even like he like turns his face towards her in the trailer, and like it's gone so fast that you just don't even absorb who it is at first.
Yeah.
So that was exciting. I like that his part was not huge. Like he was very new to the organization, but his part is important.
Right.
But not like, oh, Phil Coulson's this awesome guy. Like, no, he's, he's low down in the organization still. He's getting his feet wet. Like, they leave him at the scene. Yeah. And he's like, oh, guys. It's great.
I did really like all the 90s nods, like Blockbuster and Radio Shack.
Radio Shack, yeah. As soon as she was like, point me to where I can find communications devices, I was like, oh, it's going to be Radio Shack. It's totally going to be Radio Shack.
I mean, it would have been funny if somehow they threw in Circuit City as well.
Yeah. I like too when they put the disc in of the black box recording in the computer and it's loading forever.
She's like, what's happening?
She's like, what's happening right now?
Oh yeah, when I was in the theater, everyone around me was giggling at like, we really had to wait that long for things to happen.
Yeah, like we've come so far since then, and then like they obviously have all this technology that we don't have, and so they're like, what's taking this long? Like, so that was pretty great. I also like that she just assumed that the humans of Earth knew about aliens already. Like she was like, yeah, I gotta stop some Skrulls, like they're infiltrating, and the guy is like, what are you talking about?
Right. It sounds like a scroll.
Right.
You're like, what are you? Yeah. It's just nonsensical jibber jabber.
Exactly. She's like, oh, you guys have no idea. Which is great. I really loved that she inspires the name of the Avengers Initiative, which is awesome.
I know.
Love that. I also love that Nick Fury says, Coulson asks him, oh, you think there are others out there? And he's like, we found her and we weren't even looking.
Yeah.
If we look, we'll probably find more people out there who, have powers or are, special in some way. So that's great. I did have a little confusion. So she has blue blood.
Yes.
But she didn't always have blue blood.
Right.
But they eventually reveal that she's given transfusions, which explained it. But for a while, I was really confused. I was like, wait, is she human or not?
Right.
It's also kind of interesting because I think that Carol, in some of her backstory from the comics, is actually half Kree. Like, her mother is Kree. Oh. So I was really unsure whether she was Kree or not, which may have been by design for people who think they know what's going on, to kind of play with that a little bit.
Right.
Play with that lore. So that was nice. I was really confused though.
Right. Well, because in like one of her flashbacks when she's up in her outer space land.
Outer space land. Uh-huh.
Her flashbacks, her memory is that her blood is blue, and then
when we see what happened during the black box recording, like they're listening to it, but then we actually see it.
Yes,
she has red blood.
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh, okay.
That was interesting, but it was nice that they tied that up with him saying that
whose blood do you have? Yeah,
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was
interesting. That like maybe it would make more sense if she were half Kree, because if she were half Kree, why would she be able to take blood that wasn't hers or like her
human
blood type?
Yeah. But we've already, well, I guess I say we, I mean people who are invested in the Marvel universe. If you watch S.H.I.E.L.D., that's how Phil Coulson comes back from being dead, basically. Like, part of it. It's not all of it. Like, there's also some, science-y surgery type stuff. But he gets Kree blood infused in him.
Oh.
So that's like a big plot point. So we know that it's theoretically possible. But, you know, like, it's pretty rare.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm trying to see. I have like a little list of stuff I wanted to make sure we covered. I think we've covered most of the stuff, just bullet point stuff that I had on my list.
Yes.
There's a couple of very sort of female empowering moments in the film that I think are very important. One being, you know, you see throughout the movie, you see her sort of fragmented memories. On a lot of them, she's getting hurt or falling down. Mm-hmm. And then the Kree bring that up to her, like, you're nothing without us. Like,
yes.
You're only human. Like, you're constantly going to be getting hurt or whatever. But then we see her perspective of that, where after every time she falls down, she gets up.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's very, like, a very obvious, you know,
yeah.
thing to happen in the movie, but I loved it. And it's like, she's like, yeah, I am only human. And I've gotten this far with, you know, so I'm pretty great.
Yeah.
I also love that in her last fight with Yanrog.
Yes.
Is his name?
Yanrog.
I feel like they don't say his name very often in the movie, so...
I don't think they ever did.
I think
if they
one time, maybe.
Yeah.
So, it's not very clear what his name is, but... when she's having, like, her last fight with him, you know, he tries to basically goad her into not using her powers, into, like, fighting him with her fists, because he knows he can't beat her if she uses her powers. And he's like, you know, show me that you really are in control of yourself, whatever. And she just fucking blasts him across, like, so far, like, into these giant rocks. And she's like, I have nothing to prove to you.
Yeah.
She's like, I have this power. It's mine. Why wouldn't I use it? Like, that's such a great message.
Well, and, like, because he was basically, like, saying, oh, don't be such an over-emotional woman.
Yes, exactly. She's like, man.
It's like, yeah, but my emotions make me powerful.
Yeah, exactly.
Why would I diminish that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like that, too.
I love it. She's like, I have nothing to prove to you. And I'm absolutely sure that's going to be a GIF and or meme in the near future, which I will probably use slash put on my social media. I love that. So there's a lot of more subtle things too, you know, with the women, like making the Marvel character a woman.
Yes.
Who's, you know, the original Marvel is a man in the comics. He's like the first Captain Marvel. He's Kree. Mm-hmm. So they kept with that, which is good. And he's a good guy.
Yeah.
So they kept with that as well, but made it into a woman, which is great. There's been a lot of that in the Marvel universe, in the Marvel Comics universe over the last 10 to 15 years, where they've either made characters black or brought in female characters, or, you know, essentially promoted female characters to be more important. So that's really important. And I know that there's always a pushback from people who are like, this goes against canon, or, you know, why are you ruining my heroes or whatever, which is like, look, man, we've grown as a society, and it's okay for us to represent that in the comics.
Yeah.
Like, they wouldn't have sold any comics if they'd done that in the 60s. It doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done ever.
Right? Show me any book that was turned into a movie, and there is going to be a bunch of people that are disappointed that it wasn't how they had imagined it to be.
Exactly.
Like, that's just...
Yeah, and it's you know, it's really interesting. They've also done some interesting things with making some of the, you know, good guys bad guys, or giving them very complicated stories where you're not totally, you know, it's not as black and white as it used to be.
Yeah.
Which is great. I think it brings a lot more readers to it, comic world, you know, for it to be more human. We're like, we all make hard decisions. We all mess up sometimes. Like, it doesn't mean that we can't be strong or powerful or be heroes.
Right.
You know, like, none of us are perfect. even these people who we see or perceive as perfect.
Yeah.
So, so I liked that. I liked they had the Rumbos in there. Again, you know, great female characters, great female message. We absolutely need more of that, you know, every day, all day.
Yes.
I will say, and I think you had the same thought. We kind of both talked about this, that overall, we feel like Wonder Woman was a better movie overall.
Yeah.
But I feel like this was...
It was very different.
Yeah.
Like, yes, they both have a good amount of action.
Yes.
I don't like unnecessary murders. That's a hard thing for me in movies. And there was a lot of unnecessary murders in Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. And I felt like in Captain Marvel, everyone that was killed, there was a reason for it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just arbitrary, like, kill, which is why Infinity War was, like, rough for me to watch.
Yeah.
But I think it might have been so different to watch because there was no romance.
No romance at all. Like, even in Wonder Woman, like, they kind of don't do it right away, but it's, you know it's coming.
Right.
Like, you don't cast Chris Pine as your lead
right.
if you're not gonna have him be a romantic interest. Like,
yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I think part of what hurts this movie is that the Avengers is coming out in a month. We all know it's coming out. We're all very excited about it. So this whole movie, you're like, okay, how's it going to tie in? Like, you're thinking about that, which, you know, it might have been nicer if this had come out a little sooner, or like before Infinity War, before we knew that it was going to tie in.
Right.
Like, how great would that have been at the end? We were like, oh my God, it's going to tie in. Like, we thought this was separated because it's like in the 90s where everything else is, you know.
Like present day.
Present day, yeah.
Yeah. But it was really cool to see, like, now you know what the pager's all about.
Right, yeah. But, like, even if it come out before Infinity War, then at the end of Infinity War, we would have been like, oh my God, they're going to tie in Captain Marvel, you know.
That's why he pressed the button.
Right.
When...
at the end of that movie, whereas because this came out after the whole movie, we were like, okay, when is this pager coming? When are we, you know, like, how's it going to tie in?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so, I don't know. That may have hurt it a little bit. It's still very good. It's still super exciting, you know.
Yeah.
And now that it's out, it's interesting. So my brother-in-law has been kind of catching up, and we finally watched Infinity War when we were there at Christmas with them.
Ooh.
So because they hadn't seen so many of the other ones that we were like, this one is like everybody, like you kind of need to see some of the other films. We told them there were a few they could skip. And then, so after this one, we were like, okay, do they need to see Ant-Man and Wasp before this one? Because they haven't seen it yet. And we were like, no, I don't think they really need to. So, but, so now that it's kind of out, like, you almost could, like, you could go see this if you haven't seen Infinity War. Like, if you're catching up now.
Yeah.
You could go see this and then see Infinity War.
Absolutely.
Although, I don't know if anybody's going to know that because we said it at the end after all the spoilers, so...
That's okay.
But anyway, yeah, it's... If you haven't seen Infinity War yet...
That is totally
we just
okay.
spoiled the end of it, no.
If you haven't seen Infinity War and you're upset about a spoiler, it's been out for a while.
Yeah, I'm always like, when is it okay to start doing, like, not worrying about spoilers?
Yeah.
Like, with a movie, when it's still in the theater, obviously, like, shut your mouth, people. Like,
Right.
so rude. If it's been out for years, then it gets a little more.
If you don't know how
shady.
Shawshank Redemption ended, tough.
Yeah, it's gonna get spoiled, and no one's gonna be sad that they spoiled it for you. But we'll start wrapping up because we're almost at an hour, and I know that's our like recording limit. So I think this movie is very important. It's very fun. It's important to the MCU overall, which is great.
Yes.
I absolutely think everyone should see it.
Oh, yeah.
And also, if you haven't seen it yet, why are you still listening to this?
Right. Are you just like, oh, I don't have time to watch a 2-hour movie, so I'm just gonna like sit and listen for an hour? Go to the movie theater.
Go to the movie theater, people.
Just do it. Matinees are only $6.
I know, right?
crap.
and if you have A-list, then you really have no excuse.
Yeah.
Get your butt to the theater. I'll say thank you to Wes and Steve for letting us take over the podcast again.
Yes, thank you.
You know, we like to do this every once in a while, especially for a movie like this with a great leading lady character in a superhero role, especially.
Strong, powerful woman. Absolutely.
Yes, it's great. Final thoughts, Alexis.
Final thoughts. I'm really glad that I went and saw it. I don't often go and see movies by myself, but it was one of those movies where you don't need to go with somebody else.
Yeah.
Because you can enjoy it solely, like, just for yourself. I loved all of the different, like, surprises that popped up. I was pleasantly surprised that Jude Law's character was not the good guy.
Right?
And I just loved how female empowering it was.
Yeah, it's absolutely great.
Yeah.
If you haven't taken your daughters to it, please do.
Yeah.
It's like there's obviously violence in it, but there's nothing obscene. It's nothing really super bloody.
No,
It's
not at all.
really pretty tame.
There's more blue-green blood
Right.
than there is red blood.
Yeah. It's not a tearjerker, which is fine.
Yeah.
I think that we may get some emotional stuff with Captain Marvel in the future movie.
Right.
You know, they're all kind of emotional right now for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see if Monica shows up.
Me too. I hadn't even thought of that. Now I'm.
I know. Now you're like, yes! It's kind of funny because, like, I didn't totally, like, I knew the Rambeau connection, but I was, like, not connecting that the child was Monica at first.
Right.
And then, like, once I, like, realized it and it kind of, like, sank in, I was like, oh my god, she's totally gonna show up in the future, and I'm so excited about that.
And the fact that she wasn't fazed by the aliens.
Yeah, she was like, what ups?
It's all good.
Yeah,
I'm not scared. So she's already a strong
Yeah, exactly.
female.
She's already, like, telling aliens, don't change yourself, you're great.
Right. Love that.
All right, well, we'll wrap it up for this episode of View the Right Thing.
Woo.
Bon Cinema.